somewhere I would give full marks on. And for me, that is 50-60% of the job of the government.
Debt to GDP ratio also?
Debt to GDP ratio, fiscal deficit reduction, then acceptance of the Finance Commission findings and keeping the devolution at 141%. So there are a lot of good things to cheer from a macro point of view. I think where I am deducting 2.5 marks is no serious commitment towards attracting foreign investors. Okay. Nothing major announced on the front of manufacturing or job creation, and as usual too many schemes with very little details. So the marks may go up a little bit more
if we know what those schemes are.
What the schemes are, what the details in the schemes are.
Okay, okay. Rakesh ji, you know, I'm your first thoughts. You've seen budgets for 3 decades right now. So tell us this budget 2026. Your rating at this stage, out of 10.
Krishna, I would stay clear of ratings if you permit me. But I think it's a work in progress budget which is essentially taking off on what it did last time. We are all followers of cricket. Last time was like a T20 victory. So there was a lot of expectation this time. Okay. The budget this time is a long drawn test match. So in that sense, I agree with Barney that it's followed the basic dharma of keeping the macros in place. And, there is a bit of a setback, as someone would call it, on the stock market piece. Yeah. But stock markets, as former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said, one should not lose sleep over stock markets. My sense, to speak specifically on the political economy, just a couple of points. One is that, there's the basic noise about people over populism. I think she's lived that because there are no outlandish schemes in terms of populism. Not that they have not done it in the past, but for this particular budget, I think they steered clear of that. Second is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. I think that's again a reiteration as plank 3 of our core budget presentation. And most importantly, I see a very strong and definitive input on involving the states. And fourth point, I summarize the budget as a services budget. I'll come to that a little later once we hear from Karthik. Yeah. When we say services, it has a largely urban skew and it has a non-manufacturing skew. These are my 4 big ticket takeaways. Then I can expand on them.
Absolutely. This is just first thoughts. Again, first thoughts, Karthikeya. You've been tracking it again as a journalist for decades now, Karthikeya. But tell us your initial thoughts on this budget. We'll come to the politics of it all. There is lots of talk about, poll-bound states finding repeated mention. I'm sure you know that very well, better than me. But your first thoughts on the budget, if I were to ask you for a rating on a 10, where would you rate it?
I think 8 because it's a no rhetoric budget. It's not a populist budget. It's it avoids rhetoric. Generally, people expect budgets to be rhetoric, and budgets are dumbed down in popular narrative. Aapki pocket mein kitna aaya? So I don't think this is that sort of a budget. Aapki pocket mein kitna aaya? The budget focuses on a lot of. I think last 10, 20, 25, 30 years. This time the conversation is around the income tax, exemptions and all that. Now, if you look into the details of the budget, there are certain things which really caught my eye. For example, addition of 1 lakh allied health professionals over next 5 years. India is an aging economy. We have, our profile, we'll have a lot of old people. 1.5 lakh caregivers will be trained. As Rakesh said, that's an urban skew because you don't have the so-called Sayukt Parivars in cities, but you have them in big cities, but you have them in the rural areas. And then, for example, she spoke of orange economy. I didn't hear this word in the previous budget. AVGC Content Creator Labs, 15,000 secondary schools and 500 colleges, Indian Institute of Creative Technology. These initiatives were taken primarily, if I'm not wrong, in 60s, where these institutes came up. They bloomed and they created entrepreneur, professionals, public personalities. So there are a lot of things like that. So if I have to see in my opening comment as how do I frame the budget, we have to see it from the context of 3 kartavya which Nirmala Sitharaman spoke about. But for me, I think there are a lot of detailing in various sectors. For example, 500 reservoirs, Amrit Sarovars, fisheries, something which is very badly impacted because of the American tariffs. So in that sense of the word, a lot of meat. Market reaction, well, when Manmohan Singh first time, we were having this conversation, presented his budget in 2004, the market tanked. It created a political crisis, the UPA won. So I'm not going to get into why market, but yes, a little bit of politics, a lot of cashew, a lot of coconut, that's Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So there's lot.
I want to come to you on
the only premise I'm trying to make is that, it is a budget which needs to be seen differently. Critiqued differently, appreciated differently.
Okay. Very fair point to set the discussion into context. This budget needs to be critiqued differently, needs to be viewed differently, not by the usual parameters. Because my point is that income tax, what were people expecting? You had the slabs getting rationalized last budget. You can't possibly expect another rationalization of slabs and confuse people even further. So the expectation, the lensing needs to be different. Very fair point that you make, Kartikeya. Before we go any further, since we are discussing the political economy of this budget, let's quickly listen to some of the political reactions coming in, starting with the BJP.
बीजेपी सांसद विवेक ठाकुर हैं, बजट पर बात करते हैं। विवेक जी, बजट पेश हो गया, 1 से 10 के कितना? एक इस समाज का कोई वर्ग नहीं, देश का कोई होना नहीं, और ये भविष्य के भारत एक एक पहलू को संपूर्णता से, चाहे वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, चाहे
बिट्टू जी, सर
इंग्लैंड पूर्वोदय का। बीजेपी के वरिष्ठ नेता रविशंकर प्रसाद जी हैं, बजट पर बात करते हैं। रवि जी, आज बजट पेश हुआ और इसको लेकर आप जो एनालाइज किए हैं, इसमें क्या युवाओं का एस्पिरेशन मीट होगा?
देखिए, सबसे बड़ी बात है कि युवा संवाद जो प्रधानमंत्री ने किया था, जो के द्वारा बात कही गई, काफ़ी उसमें दिखाया गया। युवा भारत की स्किलिंग, उनकी एस्पिरेशन, कॉर्पोरेट मित्रा, टायर 2 टायर 3 सिटीज़ में और एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप को, उद्यमशीलता को आगे बढ़ाना, तो बहुत पूर्ण बजट है जिसमें इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बहुत आगे बढ़ाया गया है, SMEs के लिए बहुत काम किया है, काम करने की बात
2047 का बजट है, माना जाए
ये विकसित भारत का बजट है और बहुत ही आज उत्साह करने वाला है।
ट्रंप के टैरिफ को जवाब इस बजट में आपने देखा क्या?
ये बजट भारत का है और भारत के विकास का है, ये टैरिफ को नहीं देंगे।
कितना नंबर देंगे इसको?
नंबर देना आपका काम है। धन्यवाद। चलिए।
Kartikeya, how would you rate that? I'm going to begin with you this time around. Interesting comment coming in from Ravishankar Prasad, isn't it? Because they're saying essentially this is a future-looking budget. This is meant for the long term, not meant to save you more cash in the short term. Isn't that what the BJP is saying at this stage, Kartikeya?
You see, if I have to sum up what BJP is saying, then I should quote what BJP is saying. Let's be honest. So I'll quote them. So they are saying that we prioritize action over ambiguity, reform over rhetoric, and people over populism. Reforms were implemented for employment generation, agriculture productivity and household purchasing power. That's the opening statement of the brief they have prepared.
Okay, fair enough. Rakesh ji, let me bounce that off you then. Every budget, whether Nirmala Sitharaman is presenting it or not, the questions will always be which states, when is the elections coming up? If it is a national election, it's national election. If it's state elections, it's state elections. This particular budget, I'm sure many will observe and say, a lot of focus on coconuts, fisheries, states majoring in coconuts and fisheries are all going to polls this time around, isn't it, Rakesh ji?
Well, these would be pointed out, and naturally so. As I said in the morning, every finance minister is a politician first, and she comes from that state. She has a KRA, which is the core KRA to deliver that particular perspective. I think, when I was saying that it's a budget which is aiming for a 10% of the global GDP in services sector, and many steps have been drawn towards that particular agenda. So it's futuristic in that sense. Let me begin with, first and foremost, tourism, big push to tourism, though I would have personally liked a greater messaging on getting global, tourists come to India. Like a second version of Incredible India. A lot of people outside imagine Incredible India, but there is urgent need to get more and more people to come to India.
Aditi Devo Bhava 2.0.
There is a push for domestic tourism which has shown some results, but there is need to bring in greater inflow of global tourists, which will improve our services economy again and have a export earning. Second is that the city economic corridors. Yes. This particular scheme has to be seen from the context of smart cities. If you do an independent audit, smart cities hasn't really shaped the way it should have happened. So this city economic corridors, how do they pan in terms of smart cities? One has to see. Speed trains, again, very urban, very service oriented. There's education, employment and entrepreneurship. That's the new paradigm or a new pivot that the FM talked about. Data centers, big ticket, holiday to them till 2047, pushing the entire IT, track back to India. And then, I think this addition of biopharma, healthcare, these are all falling in the larger, what I call the services sector. Okay. So, in that sense, it is a roadmap for, putting India on top of the services economy, which anyway has been helping India in adverse situations. But to my mind, I would have liked to see a little more push. We saw something on semiconductors, on biopharma, but a more pronounced push on manufacturing. But as I said, there are big ticket announcements anyway possible outside of the realm of the budget.
Well, absolutely. You say that all the time, Rakesh ji. Barnik, because Rakesh's contention is that the budget doesn't have to contain all big reform announcements. The budget document is a matter of receipts and expenditure, and then big announcements either which way in the recent past have always been made outside of the budget. But I want to ask you this time around this focus on cutting edge technologies, this focus on IT sector. After completing the direct tax portion on income tax, she went on to talk a lot about the IT sector and what it can be done, because clearly there's a need for a boost for one of the largest employer in the country, isn't it?
So again, it was a lot of talk, but I couldn't find any substantive proposals. I think it was a lot of intent. I think there was a lot of talk of tax holidays, safe harbors, but is it enough? If you look at the IT sector in India, because it's been a service-oriented sector and not really a technology-oriented sector, is actually going to be the first sector to suffer severely at the hands of AI. In fact, there are actually anecdotes emerging from the West. If you look at North America, where nearly 50% of our IT sector's revenue comes from the US and Canada, there are rumors of IT services cuts in terms of headcount of orders of magnitude. People used to employ 2,000 service professionals, are now using 20. So again, is this enough for us to ensure that our IT services sector continues to be vibrant? Probably not, but I think the onus is more on the companies in the sector to be more innovative than wait for a government bailout. So I think the government has signaled that it's willing to support this sector. Is the support enough? No. Are there going to be headwinds in the future for this sector? Absolutely. But I think the future of this sector is in the hands of the sector for them to make the right investments and move forward. I think again, the investments and the announcements on AI seemed a little anemic. I was not sure as to, other than whether it was any serious announcement or just paying lip service, because there had to be AI and mention to AI. But again, let's look at substantive proposals. And I'm sure, knowing this government, that they will come back with some big bang announcements on investments or subsidies or PLI-like things for AI and data centers. Right. But again, it was missing in the budget. And as I said, the budget, either you take the stance that it's a budget of only receipts and spending, or it's an announcement of policy intent. I think governments in India have usually used the budget as an announcement platform for policy intent. So I think if the finance minister now comes back and say that as a ministry we will not use the budget to make major policy announcements, then I'll probably grade the budget higher, but I don't think any such announcements will come. Okay. But that being said, I expect many more future reform-oriented investment announcements in the next 3 to 6 months from the government, with the intent of attracting international capital, which we've struggled to do over the last 2 years.
Fair enough. We really need to take a short breather here at this stage. We'll be back with this conversation in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. Keep it with News9.
टाटा कैपिटल 2 व्हीलर लोन्स के साथ इसने की अपनी नई बाइक की जिद पूरी।
घर है वही जहां सब संग हो, रिश्तों को रंग दो, दुनिया को रंग दो।
Birla Opus Paints.
This isn't a trail of peace. This is pressure overload. A hill built for 1,000, forced to carry lakhs.
Instead of lightening the footprint, you have allowed people to actually get into every nook and corner of the Himalayas.
Careless travel, choking hills. If we don't change now, there won't be much left to enjoy.
We need to follow the Bhutan model, regulate people who can access hills.
News9 presents Heal the Hills, continuous coverage.
You are watching Budget for Bulletproof Bharat here on News 9, our special day-long coverage of Union Budget 2026. I'm Krishna Kumar. With us in the studio is Barnik Moitro, Rakesh Khar and Kartikeya Sharma. Kartikeya, this is the time when the discussion about the politics surrounding the budget takes off. This is where they stop, going through the fine print, because the fine print has been gone through. We will know, maybe by tomorrow exactly what some of these schemes are going to mean. But right now the conversation will be about what are these announcements? What was expected from the budget and what did we get? Did we get enough? Because the opposition, I'm sure, has a point of view at this stage. The government's point of view, you just put it out. But there will be questions raised on this budget by the opposition, isn't it, Kartikeya?
Absolutely. I mean, so there will be a press conference by Chidambaram, I'm pretty sure. But to start with what I have noticed in Kartavya 2, there are things which I find unique in this budget. For example, we've had steel towns by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, textile towns before that, for example, Modi Nagar. This budget talks about creating university townships. It's very difficult if you go to
near
Noida,
industrial corridors.
Near industrial corridors. Now, in Noida, Greater Noida, there was an attempt to create sports cities. It failed. Many state governments have tried building sports cities. So sports cities don't exist. Only some basic sports infrastructure is there. Rai is one example of it. So that is, I think, very, very interesting. Secondly, in that Kartavya 2, in the education sector, it says one girl hostel will be established in every district. I think this is like a little bit of underperformance. One girl hostel, it could have been at a grander scale, If you're talking about Nari Shakti, this could have been bigger. And secondly, I do agree with Rakesh here, because, in the fourth sector of the Kartavya, fourth point, it says that the pilot scheme for upskilling 10,000 guides in 20 tourist sites through a standardized, high-quality 12-week training course. It's next to impossible to organize. It's a completely unorganized sector. Anyone who has had some tryst with tourism industry would know that it doesn't function like that. Yes, other things are there, to develop 15 archaeological sites, including Lothal, Dholavira. I didn't expect that, I will find a mention of this sort of a thing in a budget like Lothal, Rakhi Gadi, Sarnath. I'm surprised to find this being mentioned in the budget. So this is also new to me. But I think there are limits of, it tells me there are limits of spending, I think the government has also reached its limit of spending.
Fair enough.
Which is good, actually. If the government realizes that ultimately if it has to spend more and more by borrowing more and more, that doesn't augur well. So that's where I think this 4.3, 4.4 fiscal deficit target being met, hopefully again over a sustained period of time, shows the capability of this government to be cognizant of that. You remember, Krishna, we started off with the wish list that I had done yesterday for News 9 Live, 9 of them, barring 8 of them haven't got any attention, which I felt. So I'm not surprised. One, National Critical Mineral Mission I had suggested. So they have given that a bit of a push. The other most important thing is I think the political economy framework will unravel in the next 2-3 days. Once the people get hold of the 16 Finance Committee recommendations. So they've kept it a vertical hold of 41%, which is at the last time's level. But there is a lot of devil in the fine print there. And there's going to be a lot of, especially from non-BJP ruled states, who will push for larger, transfer of equity. So in that sense, I think that's one piece.
They've given a 1.4 lakh crore per state annually, as in terms of
total, not per,
1.4 lakh for the states,
which was I think 1.2 lakh crore. As I said, the economic survey focused on greater, entrepreneurial spirit in the states. So I think there's some direction in that. So personally, I had argued yesterday in my piece also. Why don't we empower the district magistrate as the chief executive? When will we reach there? When we do that, that ties in back with ease of doing business and that last mile hurdle for the global investor or even the Indian investor to actually get his piece on the ground or off the ground in this case.
Okay, fair enough. Hold on to your thoughts. Let's also then, good time then to quickly listen into all the reactions coming in from the opposition parties. Everybody from the CPIM to Shiv Sena, let's listen in.
वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमन ने बजट पेश कर दिया है। सरकार की ओर से इसे बेहतरीन संतुलित बजट बताया जा रहा है। हमारे साथ बातचीत करने के लिए है शिवसेना उद्योग किसान सर प्रियंका चतुर्वेदी। प्रियंका जी, क्या कहेंगी, कैसा बजट है?
डिसअपॉइंटिंग बजट है। मेरी भी इस बजट से बहुत अपेक्षा थी। जो माहौल चल रहा है पूरे दुनिया भर में और लगातार मनमानी टैरिफ्स लगाए जा रहे हैं, ईच इट्स ओन है, तो ये बजट दशा और दिशा दिखा था, पर ये उसमें नाकामयाब रहा है। आप ये सिर्फ मैं ही नहीं कह रही हूँ, हमेशा हमसे कहा जाता है देखिए स्टॉक मार्केट में कितनी उछाल आई हर बार, मोदी जी हो या निर्मला सीतारमण जी हो, हमें वही कहते हैं स्टॉक मार्केट देखिए वो लोग कितना खुश हैं, सारे सेक्टर्स लाल में हैं, निफ्टी गिरा पड़ा हुआ है, तो दिखाता है कि जो दिशा दिखानी थी देश को वो दिखाने में ये नाकामयाब है। आम जनता को भी कोई राहत की सांस नहीं मैं तो इसको तीन या चार से ज्यादा नहीं दे पाऊंगी, क्योंकि हाँ उन्होंने टेक पे ध्यान दिया है, हाँ उन्होंने एआई पे ध्यान दिया है, पर जो इम्पोर्टेंट पॉलिसी इनिशिएटिव होते हैं कि इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म जो प्रधानमंत्री मोदी थे वो मिसिंग है।
Being joined by CPIM Member of Parliament John Britta, sir, what is your response to the budget that was presented by Nirmala Sitharaman?
It's a disaster. If you look at the body language of the finance minister, even she was not convinced about her proposals. She hasn't even uttered a word about the previous proposals in her previous budgets, like generating employment in the form of Prime Minister's internship. Nothing has taken off. The foreign institution investors and the FTA has dried up completely. That's why the rupee is plummeting. The only solace she has declared is that now for anybody who is to set up the data centers, she will give some sort of a tax holiday. See, there is a tax terrorism that is happening. One of the entrepreneurs in Kerala had committed suicide the other day. So the plethora of measures she had been suggesting as a panacea for the economic slowdown, nothing has succeeded. And if you look at the facial expressions of the finance minister, she herself has actually abandoned her cause completely.
I have absolutely no clue how to react to those statements from John Britta. If anybody wants to hazard a guess as to what exactly is going on, I want your reactions. Rakesh, you go first.
Well, I mean, I think politicians and even businessmen, I have never seen a top businessman give less than 7 to 8 ratings. And I have never seen an opposition politician give 3 ratings. So in that sense, and the opposition's color could change. It was BJP earlier with the Congress government budgets. So it's on expected lines, and this body language is a very subject to peace. So in that
Fair
sense,
enough.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, Karthikeya, your thoughts?
Sorry. See, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal are the focus states.
Yeah.
So I mean to say the MP in Congress party has a lot of MPs from Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So the focus of the MPs or the people who will come out very openly to criticize this budget will be from West Bengal, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. That's given. I will be, what I would really want to know is, who's going to hold the press brief on behalf of the opposition? You see, we have to understand there's a larger age curve which has happened. UPA has been out of power for 12 years. The last finance ministry was held by Pranab Mukherjee, late Pranab Mukherjee, and P. Chidambaram. Imagine if BJP is in power again, for the 4th term, who's going to hold the fort? I mean to say, who's going to critique the budget? You see, there is something called people who had worked in the government, and when they retire, who's going to be the critique from outside?
Absolutely.
These are the larger issues of governance. They balance democracy.
Fair enough. Rakeshji?
Well, I mean, we had a very bright finance minister in Tamil Nadu who no longer is there. I don't remember the name. So even the brighter guys in opposition ruled states are no longer...
You mean Painivel Tyagarajan?
So, they don't also endure. So you have a point. But I'm sure there would be brighter guys who would come up front. The need of the hour is a nuanced criticism, constructive criticism, and not blind, appreciation. Either way. So that nuanced debate has to happen. I keep saying, why didn't the land reform and the labor reform happen? Why did we roll back farm? There is a great responsibility the government has. There is an equal responsibility the opposition has.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we are all committed to 2047 as a mission statement, which every political party says we are, so for that, what is the roadmap they have, except for shutting down Parliament? I don't think that is beyond a point a legible and legitimate political.
Criticism is one thing on budget day.
And this is happening in wake of when we are tying up a lot of FTAs, like the UAE FTA, New Zealand FTA. We have FTA with the European Union, and in context of unresolved trade issues with the United States of America. So in that context, this budget is very, very important to us.
Well, as I said, budget is one piece in the larger macroeconomy. I mean, the EU FTA is a big ticket, great success story for India. Forget about the government. The whole world is looking at it as a celebration where they're saying that India got better deal than the EU.
Yes.
Whatever be the compulsions of EU to sign it now, it was pending since 2007 because they wanted to send a message to Trump. So did we. So in that sense, as I said, at times adversity forces you into a champion situation.
Manik, your thoughts, because the budget's context is very important, isn't it? This time around, the eyes of the budget is because of what's happening around the world.
Yeah, so let's first get to the political economy point. I think coming from West Bengal, I was, again, I wouldn't say surprised, but there were 3 mentions. I think there was a mention of a east-west dedicated freight corridors. I think it's in the need of the country, right?
Yes.
I think one of the high-speed rail corridors was Varanasi to Siliguri, another mention of West Bengal, and then obviously there was some mention of connectivity to the Hooghly port and the Paradip port for the eastern corridor. So again, it's always good to see that there is an emphasis. I think there was also an emphasis on the east and northeast, and I think there's a growing feeling, right, that that part of the country is undeveloped. I think I'll tell you some off-the-remark comments made by some friends in the ruling party that if you, within this election or the next election, if you want to inherit West Bengal, it cannot be an ungovernable bankrupt state, right? So you have to ensure that there's enough investments going in. So we are seeing a little bit of that. But I think stepping back again, see, let's use the cricket analogy. I think that's what we were saying, right? I think the global context makes it a sharp turning pitch, right? I think this...
Quite the cricket fan, aren't you?
Yeah, this budget is a little bit like Cheteshwar Pujara, Rahul Dravid, intelligently leaving balls, right? And ensuring that they don't lose their wicket. Could the government...
An indication has come the Prime Minister is going to speak anytime soon.
Yeah, we do know that.
We have done a little bit of Rishabh Pant is a question.
Should be done.
But again, I think it's a responsible budget, right?
Yeah.
I think we've not taken any liberties, no populism,
absolutely,
fiscal deficit there. So I think that's the reason for, despite disappointing several of us on several fronts, I think on balance, I think it's a...
But even if you look at the the fine detail, the budget that was allocated in that space of Nareka last year, in the GRAMG scheme, it has gone up. Yeah. It has gone up by, I think, 15 to 19%. It's a
very clear impetus on improving for rural income, rural farm income.
Yeah, absolutely. But the government moves money around. I think the fiscal deficit is lower. It's come from some other pocket. So again, this government is very good at reducing expenditure. And when it seems that expenditure has gone up, they've done some funny accounting. So I would look for the detail. Yeah, let's look at health spend. The health spend on India, government healthcare spend on India on a healthcare basis has drastically fallen over the last 5 years. It doesn't show up in the accounts because the government adds sanitation, adds a few other things, which suggests that the budget is going up. So again, government is very good at reducing expenditure. Maybe they do good accounting to show it's not reduced as much. But it's not a bad thing. A lot of the expenditure is also wasteful.
Okay.
So I think it's a good budget. I think it's a good, cautious
I have a question. I have a question for you. Prime Minister in last 10 years have been consistently talking about tourism, but it has not shaped up the way the Prime Minister has been talking about it in terms of domestic circulation. You spend more, you go more. But it hasn't happened like that. Why?
No, there are 2 reasons. I think when Prime Minister said that Atitya Dev, everybody, each Indian citizen and family must go on a domestic circuit, which is a fair point. But that's part A.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid I'll have to interrupt you because I think Prime Minister Modi has started speaking.
ऐतिहासिक है, इसमें देश की नारी शक्ति का सशक्त प्रतिबिंब झलकता है। महिला वित्त मंत्री के रूप में निर्मला जी ने लगातार 9वीं बार देश का बजट प्रस्तुत करके नया रिकॉर्ड बनाया है। ये बजट अपार अवसरों का राजमार्ग है। ये बजट वर्तमान के सपनों को साकार करता है और भारत के उज्जवल भविष्य की नींव को सशक्त करता है। ये बजट 2047 के विकसित भारत की हमारी ऊंची उड़ान का मजबूत आधार है। साथियों, आज भारत जिस रिफॉर्म एक्सप्रेस पर सवार है, इस बजट से उसे नई ऊर्जा, नई गति मिलेगी। जो पाथ ब्रेकिंग रिफॉर्म्स किए गए हैं, वो एस्पिरेशन से भरे हुए भारत के साहसिक, टैलेंटेड युवाओं को उड़ने के लिए खुला आसमान देते हैं। ये बजट ट्रस्ट बेस्ड गवर्नेंस और ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक अर्थरचना के विजन को साकार करता है। एक ऐसा यूनिक बजट है जिसमें फिस्कल डेफिसिट कम करने, इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल करने पर फोकस है और इसके साथ ही बजट में हाई कैपेक्स और हाई ग्रोथ का भी समन्वय है। साथियों, ये बजट भारत की वैश्विक भूमिका को नए सिरे से सशक्त करता है। भारत के 140 करोड़ नागरिक फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी बनकर ही संतुष्ट नहीं है। हम जल्द से जल्द दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनना चाहते हैं। ये करोड़ों देशवासियों का संकल्प है। दुनिया के एक ट्रस्टेड डेमोक्रेटिक पार्टनर और ट्रस्टेड क्वालिटी सप्लायर के रूप में भारत की भूमिका लगातार बढ़ रही है। हाल में जो बड़ी बड़ी ट्रेड डील्स भारत ने की है, मदर ऑफ ऑल डील्स, उसका मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट भारत के युवाओं को मिले, भारत के लघु और मध्यम उद्योग वालों को मिले, इस दिशा में बजट में बड़े बड़े कदम उठाए गए हैं। साथियों, इस बजट में मेक इन इंडिया और आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान को नई रफ्तार के लिए महत्वाकांक्षी रोड मैप प्रस्तुत किया गया है। इस बजट में नई उभरती इंडस्ट्रीज यानी सनराइज सेक्टर्स को जिस मजबूती के साथ समर्थन दिया गया है वह अभूतपूर्व है। बायोफार्मा शक्ति मिशन, सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन 2.0, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्कीम, रेयर अर्थ कॉरिडोर का निर्माण, क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स पर बल, टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर में नई स्कीम, हाईटेक टूल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बढ़ावा, चैंपियन एमएसएमईज तैयार करना, ये फ्यूचरिस्टिक है, देश की वर्तमान और भविष्य की आवश्यकताओं का ध्यान रखती है। एमएसएमईज को, हमारे लघु और कुटीर उद्योगों को जो समर्थन इस बजट में मिला है वह उन्हें लोकल से ग्लोबल बनने की नई ताकत देगा। साथियों, बजट में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को मजबूत करने के लिए कई बड़े कदम उठाए गए हैं। डेडिकेटेड फ्रेट कॉरिडोर, देश भर में वाटरवेज का विस्तार, हाई स्पीड रेल कॉरिडोर, टियर 2 और टियर 3 शहरों के विकास पर विशेष ध्यान और शहरों को मजबूत आर्थिक आधार देने के लिए म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड्स को बढ़ावा, ये सारे कदम विकसित भारत की यात्रा की गति को और तेज करेंगे। साथियों, किसी भी देश की सबसे बड़ी पूंजी उसके नागरिक होते हैं। बीते वर्षों में हमारी सरकार ने देश के नागरिकों के सामर्थ्य को बढ़ाने पर अभूतपूर्व निवेश किया है। हमारा प्रयास स्किल, स्केल और सस्टेनेबिलिटी को निरंतर बल देने का रहा है। जैसा कि आज पार्लियामेंट में निर्मला जी ने कहा है, यह युवा शक्ति बजट है। उसमें युवा की सोच भी है, युवा के सपने भी हैं, युवा का संकल्प भी है और साथ साथ युवा की गति भी है। बजट में जो प्रावधान किए गए हैं उससे अलग अलग सेक्टर्स में लीडर्स, इनोवेटर्स और क्रिएटर्स तैयार होंगे। मेडिकल हब्स के निर्माण से, एलाइड हेल्थ प्रोफेशनल्स के माध्यम से, ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी यानी ऑडियो विजुअल गेमिंग को बढ़ावा देकर, पर्यटन को प्रोत्साहन देकर और खेलो इंडिया मिशन के माध्यम से युवाओं के लिए नए अवसरों के द्वार खुलेंगे। भारत को दुनिया का डेटा सेंटर हब बनाने के लिए टैक्स में बड़ी छूट की घोषणा भी की गई है। मैं भारत के युवाओं को विशेष तौर पर इस बजट की बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं, क्योंकि इससे एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन को बड़ा बूस्ट मिलेगा। मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि इस बजट में टूरिज्म और विशेषकर नॉर्थ ईस्ट में टूरिज्म को बढ़ावा देने के लिए भी ठोस कदम उठाए गए हैं। भारत के अलग अलग राज्यों को ताकतवर बनाकर संतुलित विकास की नींव भी इस बजट में मजबूत की गई है। साथियों, हमारे देश में 10 करोड़ से ज्यादा महिलाएं सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप से जुड़ी हैं और बड़ा सफल अभियान रहा है। महिलाओं द्वारा निर्मित, महिलाओं द्वारा संचालित सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स का आधुनिक इकोसिस्टम बने, बजट में इसे प्राथमिकता दी गई है। कोशिश यही है कि हर घर लक्ष्मी जी पधारे। हर जिले में छात्राओं के लिए नए हॉस्टल बनाने का अभियान भी शिक्षा को सुलभ बनाएगा। साथियों, भारत की कृषि, डेयरी सेक्टर, फिशरीज, इन्हें हमारी सरकार ने हमेशा सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता दी है। इस बजट में भी नारियल, काजू, कोको और चंदन की पैदावार से जुड़े किसानों के लिए अनेक अहम कदम उठाए गए हैं। भारत विस्तार एआई, इस टूल से किसानों को उनकी भाषा में जानकारी मिलने से उन्हें बहुत मदद मिलेगी। फिशरीज और पशुपालन में उद्यमिता, उसको बढ़ावा देने से गांव में ही रोजगार और स्वरोजगार के और ज्यादा अवसर बनेंगे। साथियों, ये बजट एम्बिशियस भी है और ये बजट देश की एस्पिरेशन को भी एड्रेस करता है। मैं एक बार फिर निर्मला जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को इस फ्यूचरिस्टिक बजट के लिए, संवेदनशील बजट के लिए, गांव, गरीब, किसान का कल्याण करने वाले बजट के लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Congratulating Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on a historic futuristic budget. Futuristic is what he called it. He said it's a budget and a roadmap to Atmanirbhar Bharat. It focuses on Nari Shakti, scaling, sustainability and India being a global force to reckon with. Prime Minister said we're focused on tourism, especially across Northeast. So Northeast remains an area of focus. It's an ambitious budget. It's an aspirational budget. And it's just the right kind of budget that delivers on policy momentum but also ensures continuity, and continuity is what we're looking at. On the show with me, of course, are my colleagues. Rakesh Kar continues to be with us. I want to come back to you, Rakesh. I think you were answering a very important question on tourism.
Absolutely.
And I think Kartikeya asked you something to do with whether there is enough and more focus on tourism, and whether that focus on tourism in the last couple of budgets also has really delivered on the kind of momentum we needed. Not a flight of capital, people flying abroad, spending on expensive and exotic tourist destination. Have we been able to come up with the kind of tourism, the momentum, the circuit that we want?
That's what I was trying to point out, Shweta. What has happened is that the Prime Minister a couple of years ago made a push for domestic tourism, where, he said that more and more citizens should go and visit your own country. That has grown, but I think a bigger number that has grown is of people going out to, cheaper and more competitive destinations. The point I was trying to make is that, like what has happened in today's budget, in the transaction tax on, global travel, has also been liberalized. Right. So in a way, we are also incentivizing people going abroad. So what we have suffered for the ever since 1991 budget, tourism was mentioned then as well as an export potential, constituency. We've not been able to, really, we're punching way below our weight on the tourism piece. And there are smaller countries with much less to offer. Vietnam, Mauritius, Sri Lanka, they're attracting tourists in large droves. We have everything in place. We need to, one, make it a little more credible. Second, also we need to repackage the story. What is the story
since we are
about
on
Indian
tourism, we are being joined by Tourism Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat. What better person to explain to us what the budget means for tourism, sir? Take it away. What excites you about this budget as far as India's tourism potential is concerned?
Thank you very much. Before I say anything, I would like to express my gratitude to Honorable Prime Minister for his blessing, and to the Finance Minister also for giving importance to the tourism sector and culture as well, because both these sectors cannot be separated. They are always together. First of all, I would like to express my gratitudes for declaring the establishment of National Institute of Hospitality, which was much desired, because the way hospitality is increasing in India, demand for hospitality is increasing in India, tourism is flourishing in India, tourism is expanding in India, the trained manpower is the need of the hour. So this declaration is going to pave the path for making available the trained human resources for hospitality industry, which is much desired and which was always desired by the industry. The second thing is to train 10,000 guides on certain iconic tourist destinations so that they can work for better storytelling and can earn better livelihood. The third thing, which has been announced through this budget, is to develop 15 excavation sites to give better tourist experience and better understanding for the people who have the interest in excavation site and archaeological sites, so that it had happened in the birthplace of Prime Minister Modi ji. So it is going to create another tourism opportunity, and they will be one of the most desired destinations in our country. Apart from that, the budget today that speaks about creating new ecological trail, new mountain trails, new turtle trails, new locations for sky grazing, star grazing also. So all these initiatives which have been announced and declared, they are really going to develop the tourism potential. Apart from this, it has been declared that in northeastern region, Buddhist trail will be developed and Buddhist monasteries and the temples are going to be strengthened. 5 trains in the Himalayan region for the tourists for better views they can see, that special trains are going to be operated. Apart from that, 5 medical hub to be created. So that is going to pave the path, as Honorable Finance Minister have stated during her budget speech. She mentioned that is going to pave the path for a medical value tourism also. So overall, I can say this is going to pave the path for the tourism in the coming future.
Okay, I have to ask you quickly about the outbound tourists to other countries, sir. There's been a 10% growth when you compare to tourists who are going abroad, who are leaving the country and spending money on exotic locations outside of India, as opposed to utilizing their own internal tourism circuit. So we're trying to develop tourism internally, but there is a lot of capital flight. You think the policies in the past have perhaps not given us the kind of momentum that we needed to develop some of these tourist hotspots, including the ones in Northeast?
No, I totally disagree this, because the tourism potential of domestic tourism in India has gone exponentially high in last 10 years time. That is because of the economic upliftment of the society by the help of the schemes which were initiated by Honorable Prime Minister, and the schemes were implemented so well on the ground, and 25 crore people have come out of poverty line. Another thing for tourism which is most desired is the infrastructure for commutation. We have seen the historic growth. Maybe it is the road infrastructure, or it is rail infrastructure, or it is infrastructure in aviation. The scenario is completely changed. And in last 1 year's time, barring the figures of Prayagraj Kumbh, almost 294 crore tourists have travelled across the country in all our Indian destinations.
Okay.
That is a very, very high growth. And if we compare, because the economy is growing, because people have the money to spend, they have also we have observed the growth in the people going abroad also. And for overseas tourists also, it is a big incentive has been announced as per the desire and request of the overseas tour operators, that the tax which used to be 10% has been reduced to 2%.
Okay, let me quickly pass on to my colleague Kartikeya as well as Rakesh Khar, sir.
Namaste, Kartikeya, sir. We want to know what is your vision for the Northeast, sir. Prime Minister specifically spoke about that. You would recall, sir, late Atal Bihari Vajpayee spoke about Ashtalakshmi when he referred to Northeast. आपकी विजन क्या है Northeast की tourism को लेके?
देखिए, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अष्टलक्ष्मी केवल जो सपना देखा था अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी की आंखों ने, उस सपने को साकार करने की दिशा में अनेक परिवर्तन किए। अष्टलक्ष्मी प्रांत जो पहले अपने आप को भारत का हिस्सा ही नहीं मानते थे, कटा हुआ सा महसूस करते थे, अलग थलग महसूस करते थे, आज भारत के विकास का ग्रोथ इंजन बने। और जिस तरह का एक हेल्दी कंपटीशन इन सभी प्रांतों में अपने यहाँ पर टूरिज्म पोटेंशियल को ग्रो करने, उसको आगे बढ़ाने को देख करके दिखाई देता है। निश्चित रूप से इस बजट के माध्यम से उसको और अधिक बल भी मिलेगा और अधिक ऊंचाई भी मिलेगी। और क्योंकि स्पेसिफिकली बुद्धिस्ट ट्रेल को लेकर के, हिमालयन ट्रेल्स को लेकर के, इन सब विषयों को लेकर के जिस तरह की चर्चा इस बजट में की गई है, पूर्वोत्तर भारत के प्रांतों को निश्चित रूप से उनके पर्यटन को में अभिवृद्धि करने के दृष्टिकोण से इसमें बहुत लाभ होगा। पिछले बजट में हमने 50 ग्लोबल आइकॉनिक डेस्टिनेशंस बनाने की बात की थी। सभी राज्य उसमें काम कर रहे हैं और मैं मानता हूं कि पूर्वोत्तर राज्यों को भी इस तरह के आइकॉनिक डेस्टिनेशंस बनाने से बहुत लाभ होगा। शासकीय स्कीम में पिछली बार हमने जब सारे स्टेट्स को प्रोजेक्ट सपोर्ट असिस्टेंस दिया था, उसमें भी सभी स्टेट्स अपने टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशंस को डेवलप करने, ग्रीन फील्ड, ब्राउनफील्ड डेस्टिनेशंस को बनाने पे काम कर रहे हैं। मुझे लगता है अगले साल तक जब ये सब काम पूरे होंगे तो निश्चित रूप से कई नए अट्रैक्शंस जो है पूर्वोत्तर भारत के टूरिज्म किटी में, उनके बुके में नए अट्रैक्शंस जो है वहाँ आएंगे।
Mr. Minister, good afternoon. It's congratulations on the budget laying such important focus on tourism. You know, I think in many years we've seen such unified approach to make tourism a big piece of the Indian economy. But there's obviously an inward piece, which obviously we've done very well under the Prime Minister's, push to get domestic tourists to see most of the country, which was not the case earlier. And there is an uptick there, as you rightly mentioned. But India is facing tremendous competition from, smaller countries in the neighborhood and outside as a, destination of, inbound tourism. So is it time to, put equal focus on reimagining the India story, like we had the incredible India story, branding it afresh so that there is a fresh storytelling which is compelling and competitive when it comes to inbound tourism, because it has huge economic potential versus domestic economical input that happens.
As far as the inbound tourism is concerned, there was a big shock to all of us, to all the entire world. It was a big shock during the COVID. But post-COVID, the larger tourism economies, the way they have observed the growth, India was among the few countries which have attained the pre-COVID benchmark within a stipulated time. But simultaneously, as you have mentioned that India need repackaging of the story, I disagree with this, because India doesn't want any or doesn't need any repackaging of story or new stories. We have enough of stories. People are interested, they have expressed interest, and whosoever have come to India will always mesmerized and overwhelmed to see our heritage, our culture, our different flowers in the bouquet of tourism.
Right.
India is so blessed country which has everything which a tourist in the world can fulfill. The appetite of the tourist, he can feel overwhelmed to come here. But simultaneously, having leverage of the technology which has come now, with the AI and other technology-driven experiences. Now, Honorable Finance Minister, as you have seen that observed in that her budget speech, she have declared the formation of National Destination Digital Knowledge Grid. So this grid, when it will be functional, it will be another way to market India abroad and all across the world.
Right. All right, Minister, thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you for joining us on this very crucial day, and congratulations once again for all the policies which we hope that Indians are able to finally realize the potential of tourism in this country. Joining me on the show is Charanjot Singh Nanda, President ICAI. Also with us is Prasanna Kumar, Vice President ICAI. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking time out. Charanjot Singh ji, I want to come to you first. As far as direct taxes is concerned, there is little, to surprise us. We expected there won't be many changes. We will not be saving much. So that conversation, of course, had already happened. The expectations were already tapered because many changes came up in last year's budgets. But are you happy with the budget, and how would you rate it when you look at the fine prints that are now flowing into the systems? How would you rate this budget, sir?
Madam, this is a wonderful budget. Oh, except for one thing that STT has raised. So with that increment in STT, stock markets have not taken it very well. Otherwise, it has been a very reformist budget. The first important thing which I want to tell you, that if a resident acquires assets from foreign sources and has not disclosed, it led to penalty and to imprisonment. Now full immunity has to be given, no penalty, no imprisonment. With respect to the increase in filing of tax returns, the tax returns, if you are a person doing business and you do not fall under audit, it has been increased from 31st July to 31st August. Revised return, the date was 31st December. They have now, again in a reformist way, extended it to 31st March. One very good thing, the TCS's rate for education and management and medical purposes have gone down from 5% to 2%. Very importantly, the finance minister has clarified that forms has been redesigned for easier filing of returns, and I want to tell you, ICI has a big role to play. And one important thing, you all have a higher tax rate, TDS, tax deduction source. But at times you can always file for a lesser TDS rate so that the money flows in the system. Earlier you had to go to the assessing officer. Now they have given an online provision. The rules will come out with the finer details. So once you take that, you will be able to very rightly put that into the right perspective.
All right. Prasanna, I have to ask you, one of your expectations was that couples will be taxed together. Now, that hasn't really come through. Do you think there was no merit in that proposal?
Yeah, that was expected by everyone. And is prevalent in all the developed economies. But of course, that announcement has not come. But that will not make much difference. There's only expectation. That will not have any impact on the public also. Much impact.
All right. As far as STT is concerned, that has come as a bummer, sir. So my last question to you, perhaps, Charanjot Singh Nanda.
Yes, madam. It came as a surprise.
It is a surprise. It is a bummer. Yes.
There were news. Some people preempted that STT may go, but it was increased. So that is something which went very hard with the markets. The bourses couldn't take it to that level.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Nanda, as well as Mr. Kumar, for taking time out. I want to come to Dikshu Kukreja, Managing Principal, CP Kukreja Architects, also joining us on the show. Dikshu Kukreja, record earmarked budget when it comes to capex, 12.2 lakh crore rupees. Was that expected? It's about 4.5% of the GDP at this point.
Well, I think that's fantastic news. And as the Prime Minister has called it a futuristic budget, I think this is one of the hallmarks of it, that there is a confidence given by the government in terms of the infrastructure growth story and by willing to put in that kind of a capex into the system. And when we look back in the last 11 years, this has almost grown by 10 times. So this is really an enormous increase, 10% over last year's increase, a record in that sense in terms of the number of 12.2 lakh crore. I think it really infuses a lot of dynamism into the system, because it's not just this capex, but the effects, the ripple effects of it, the investment that comes in from around the world, the investment that comes in from the private sector, it propels the India growth story. So I think that's a very welcome move and a real confidence building move that in this world of tariff wars and everything else that the world is seeing, the Indian government, the Indian economy is strong, is resilient, and is willing to put in that kind of capex into the system.
All right. Stay on, sir. Let me also quickly bring in Rajinder Singh Bhatia, Chairperson, Kalyani Strategic Systems, joining us on the show. Rajinder Singh Bhatia, looking at defense allocation there, 10% from, I believe, at least from 49 lakh crore rupees to about 57 lakh crore rupees. We'll try and get those numbers back on air. But that's a substantial 10% increase. But if you also look at capital expenditure when it comes to defense budgets, far exceeded last year. Obviously, it comes on the back of Operation Sindoor. Were you hoping this number to be at about 57,000 crore rupees, or was the expectation much higher?
I think it is quite aligned to the expectations. But before I get to that, firstly, thank you for having me on your show. Coming back to the point regarding, let's take a look at the capital outlay. If you take a look at the capital outlay, which is the acquisition budget, it was 1,80,000 crores in the budgetary estimates for the last year. It was revised to 1,86,000 crores. And this year it has gone up to 2,19,000 crores, which shows a budget on budget increase of about 22%. And if you talk from RE to B, it's an increase of nearly 17 or nearly 18%. If you recall and see, there was a statement made by Defense Secretary about a month ago that they are looking at enhancement of the capital acquisition budget by nearly 20%. So this is quite aligned to that. In fact, it is more than 20%, it's 22%. Coming back to the overall budget, I think the increase is even more sizable. From 6,81,000 crores, which takes into account pension budget and all the other outlay for defense, it has moved up to 7,84,000 crores. So there's an increase of nearly 1 lakh crore, which translates to actually 15% if you take a look. But if you take a look from RE to B, it is an increase of another 7.5% to 8%. And it is a sizable increase because there was an increase following Operation Sindoor.
All right.
But what I really want to bring about is the numbers do not tell the whole story.
Okay.
And you look at defense business, it's a very tierized structure. It's a whole of nation approach. So many other things which are announced today are going to have a very positive impact on the defense ecosystem in the country. Take a look at when we are talking about champion SMEs.
That's right.
So this is exactly, I think these are very, very
absolutely.
important.
I'm going to come back to you, sir, when it comes to what are your key takeaways from the budget. Let me also quickly get in Saket Mehta, auto EV partner at Grant Thornton, who's also with us on the show. Saket, as far as the auto sector is concerned, we haven't seen any form of PLI restructuring by the way of PLI 2.0. We'll still to read the fine print of the document. But as far as EV is concerned, there is some respite there by the way of lithium-ion batteries, which will now be exempted from BCD.
Yeah, so you're right, Shruti, the industry was expecting some kind of revised version of the PLI. But if you look at the uptake which has been happening across the electric vehicles, be it in passenger vehicles, two-wheelers, I think the government decided to really look at more long-term rather than having a very short-term vision. And the announcement around the semiconductor 2.0 is a significant step. Why? Because this will go a long way in making the components for electric vehicles much cheaper, much economical, as well as more energy efficient.
Let me also quickly get in Jaspreet Singh, Partner Chief Revenue Officer, Grant Thornton Bharat, who's also with us. Jaspreet Singh, of the announcements that were made as far as India's positioning in the AI architecture is concerned, there's also the announcement of, India's Semiconductor Mission 2.0. Are you happy with the progress India's Semiconductor Mission has made? And the, Finance Minister stood up there today in the well of the House and said the focus will now be on making fabs in India. That will be the focus of India's Semiconductor Mission 2.0.
I think that's a very, very bold move, very, very forward-looking move. From an India perspective, if I look at what's happening in the semiconductor world, the AI world, there are two key announcements. One is obviously the semiconductor 2.0 piece, and the second is on foreign cloud service providers setting up, can set up offices in India, run data centers in India, and are tax exempt from a 2047 perspective. This will boost job creation. This will boost a lot of infrastructure, not only in main cities, but also can go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, and will give a big, big boost to our AI mission, India AI mission as well, because a lot of people would then want to make in India and run it for the world. So this is a very, very bold move from a Viksit Bharat 2047 vision perspective.
All right, coming back to you, Dikshu, as we try and go through the fine print of the document, but as to what has come up by the way of policies as far as Awas Yojana is concerned, Grameen as well as, urban areas, there is a lot of conversation on building highways, ensuring there are more waterways in this country which are made functional for better connectivity. What surprised you about, announcements made today? What made you happy?
Well, what made me happy really is that there is a growing impetus that, there's only that much you can keep investing into big metropolitan cities. And this is something that I've been also advocating and championing this cause, that we should start investing and looking into our tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because that in itself will have a double benefit, that not only those areas prosper and bring in the Atmanirbharta, but also they control urban migration. So I think this allocation of 5,000 crores towards tier 2 and tier 3 cities will, again, like I said earlier, all these investments, all these allocations have ripple effects on the overall economy of the country. So that I think is a very welcome step. And then also aspects of establishing Ayurveda, medical tourism, that's such an important aspect that we can take out to the world and showcase and can become a great revenue earner for the country. So focusing on that, focusing on orange economy, it being youth-centric, women-centric. If there are 100 million women who are having the kind of self-help groups, and there are provisions in this budget which are going to help them in growing. I think all these aspects really lead to a budget which is covering all dimensions, including the fact that, there are things being more investment, not just in factors like defense, etc., that you're talking about, but even into sports. The new mission that's going to be of Khelo India is going to be another impetus which will take us, bring not just sporting laurels, but it empowers the youth, it improves the health, So all these health and well-being issues come together. So from all those perspectives, I think, many sensitive chords have been touched here. And this creates what one hears about the slogans of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. It is a budget which is covering all aspects. But yes, infrastructure is the backbone of any country, any economy which is on a growth path, and the impetus that has been put on infrastructure, and not just by the capex, but also by bringing in PPP models. Because if we have to grow and grow at a pace that we are looking at, then today we've reached to be a 4+ trillion economy, but we have goals of going much higher. So bringing in private investment into it, creating the private-public partnership model is a great mantra for success. And I think that's commendable that the budget has addressed that as well.
And let's not forget, one of the areas or one of the promises the government is also making is to develop tier 2, tier 3 cities by the way of this city mapping scheme, which has allocated about 5,000 crore rupees to figure out those economic zones in tier 2, tier 3 cities that can be potentially developed. But I believe that's all the time you have with us.
Shweta, one line I would add, investment is one thing, but flawless execution is also the key. So 100%. I hope all these infrastructure projects have a flawless execution as well. That's something to keep in mind.
All right, Dikshit Kukreja, thank you very much for taking time out. I want to come back to you, Rajendra Singh Bhatia. Of all the announcements that were made with regards to regional corridor development, city economics development, I think what stood out for me, as many others are also pointing out, there's a lot of focus and thrust on building India's own capabilities by the way of its MSMEs. So, whether it's to understand what are the legacy MSMEs that we can focus on, or potential areas, the 7 areas of development that government has identified where India should focus on. So be it strategic minerals, semiconductors, so on and so forth. So those areas that need to be identified and special impetus needs to be put in to ensure that, those are the sectors that India works towards developing in the near future.
Oh, so you're perfectly right on this. If you take a look at building a defense ecosystem, there are certain voids which are existing in the country today. And those voids are around our capability to develop semiconductors, our ability to utilize rare earth elements, which are going to be more and more scarce as we go forward, our capability on high precision manufacturing, and most importantly, skill sets, which should have design education available to them. So I think overall, all these things are probably adding to fill that technology voids or the ecosystem voids which are existing. Now, coming back to SMEs, and I want to little stress on it, the complete defense ecosystem revolves around a tierized structure, where you have system integrators, which are large companies, but then you are surrounded by tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, which are invariably MSMEs. And some of their stress does lie in some of the actions which have been talked about, like credit guarantee schemes, talking about linking threats to GEM, trying to ensure that they get their receivables, making receivables be taken as asset on the balance sheet. I think all these are small, works which are being done here and there, but will have a major impact on the MSMEs which are there in this country.
All right.
And this ecosystem is totally dependent upon that.
Absolutely. The ecosystem is totally dependent on it. In fact, the conversation around building MSMEs has been long pending. Government has tried to bring in reforms, haven't really worked on ground. I think that's the larger message. And especially in the light of India-EU deal, there seems to be a lot more focus on making it in India and making it for the world. So you have to have quality while you have volume and quantity, and you need to be able to replace, some of those markets in South Asia, which India is competing with at the moment as far as its, making capabilities is concerned. But joining me on the show right now is also Chirag Jain, partner food, a processing industry leader at Grant Thornton Bharat. Chirag, we haven't heard much in the budget as far as food processing is concerned. What have you picked up?
Absolutely. So I am aligned to this. There is very little which has been talked about from the Ministry of Food Processing Industries perspective in terms of the processing infrastructure. I think there is definitely a lot of opportunities which is about food processing has to be undertaken. But if we talk about from the overall inclusive perspective, I would say the budget is still yes budget. and we call it in Hindi HAM, where larger focus has been on high value agriculture as well as on allied sector. Where the larger focus has been
high value agriculture, focusing on cashew, focusing on cocoa, focusing on sandalwood. I think those three industries were specifically mentioned by Finance Minister, saying that this is where we need to ensure India's leadership in the world, especially in cocoa, as well as coconut for that matter. So there's a scheme now for coconut processing as well.
Absolutely. So if you talk about high value agriculture, cocoa, for example, we are only producing about 20,000 metric ton, while our demand for the country itself is about 1.2 lakh metric ton. So we are only producing about 20% of what the Indian demand is. Similarly, for our coconut ecosystem, for the last 2 decades, the overall productivity of coconut plantation has been decreased by about 45 to 50%. So there is definitely a need for rejuvenation of those plantations. Those are senile in nature. While we talk about sandalwood, so ecosystem around sandalwood has been, in terms of forestry, a lot of potential around sandalwood needs to be explored. And with this particular initiative, focusing towards some of these large plantation crop is the key important factor for economic growth of the country.
Amongst all these sector-specific asks and demands, and some of which have been met, some haven't been met, I think the larger conversation remains, where will the jobs come from? And I think by the way of focusing on making in India, the government is also now focusing increasingly on some of these sectors employing more people. So while there is direct mention of women as entrepreneurs, there is very little that has come in by the way of, job creation. Saket Mehta, job creation continues to be one of the pain points of this economy, where the joblessness, unemployment is still at about 5%. That's the number coming in, while government says we've lifted 25 crore people out of poverty. The fact of the matter is that joblessness and jobless growth continue to be major hindrances for us.
You're right, Shruti. I think we as a country, as a nation, we've been having our own challenges when it comes to employment. But if you look at, there are many programs which have been run in past, particularly for skill development. And in this budget itself, Honorable Finance Minister also announced certain schemes which will enable medical profession to come forward, accountants to come forward, and help the new age technology companies. I think I would like to draw your attention to also the fact, if I were to just take a divergent view on the automotive industry. The industry roughly employs 1.5 million people, and the MSME contributes almost 2 to 3% of the total GDP. Now, the biggest challenge that we as an auto industry have been having is in terms of having the right skill sets to cater to the new age vehicles which are coming up, be it electric vehicles, be it alternative fuel age vehicles. So I think this challenge is largely getting addressed by the different skill councils which are being running across the country, development of, or I would say partnership between the academia and as well as the industry. Different schemes which have been rolled out by NSDC. So I think it will take some time, but yes, it remains a challenge with respect to addressing employability across the nation.
Chirag, coming back to you, one of the things that I picked up this budget focused on specifically, and I think it was a positive change, is also the focus on mental health. We are looking at a lot of schemes there being implemented by the way of catering to young people's mental health. I understand that necessarily is not, your area of expertise, but being a young person yourself, it's a refreshing change to see government talk about a focus on mental health, having more mental health institution, adding the capacity for NIMHANS, and just the right sort of thrust when it comes to ensuring more productivity.
Absolutely. So if we talk about the mental health area, there is very little being talked about, be it at a community level or probably at a family level. So these institutions, and I would really value the corporate ecosystem, which is talking about this, the kind of mental health initiatives which the corporate is now driving, and government has also really learned, these are the key important issues which needs to be addressed, and some of the current initiative will help overall ecosystem to drive, and people are going to talk about it. So I'm personally very much aligned to this particular initiative of government, because this is something not only from the ages of about 40 to 50, even young young chaps, young students are also facing this particular challenge critically, and this particular initiative will really help for a healthy generation, healthy youth for our country.
Absolutely, a healthy generation and a generation that perhaps is less burdened, more free, has more time to focus on its own mental health as well. Jaspreet Singh, you know, as we go through the fine prints of the budget, as more and more details emerge, there's also an increased focus on adoption of AI, and that of course was much needed. The conversation around what AI can do, can it take away jobs? Should it take away jobs, then we need to skill enough and more people. So skilling has been a major focus, but also I think new AI tools that can be implemented to make lives better. For instance, I can think of Bharat Vistar as an important announcement where, you know, a farmer can know what kind of crop to use, what sort of soil to use that seed in, and, you know, get the right sort of help by the way of subsidies from the government. So using AI stack and AI tools in the right fashion to ensure that various sectors in this country benefit. So we are looking at, you know, AI being used not just in UPI but also in aviation, and now being extended to you know, agriculture sector. That's a good change. That's a fast adoption.
Absolutely. So I think maybe just before we come to AI, you know, you spoke about skilling, jobs creation, etc. The entire announcement around semiconductors 2.0 and the entire data center piece, where foreign companies can come and set up huge data centers in India in 2047, will lead to huge job demands coming in India. Not only tier 1 cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities. India is at an inflection point. And when I talk about AI, thanks that you gave example of 3 semi-sectors where AI is being used today, but unfortunately, AI is being used across the entire enterprises today, all kinds of industries, right? You gave a farmer example. I will also give you a farmer example. One of the largest tractor manufacturing companies in India has actually on their tractors put a small button, right? In case the tractor stops working because of anything, you just press that. There's an automatic distress call that goes to a call center, which analyzes about 300 parameters from an AI perspective, from your tractor perspective, on what went wrong, and then basis that gives you a call back and directly connects you to that technician or that problem within the tractor. It could be an engine problem, it could be this.
Right.
Look at what's happening from a farmer perspective. We take almost 20 years to do research and development on huge amount of data. Come AI, come data analytics, the time is being crunched to less than 18 months from a trials perspective.
Right. You know, stay with us. I think Finance Minister has taken the stage there, and she's all set to speak. This is Finance Minister from National Media Centre addressing the national media for the first time after her budget announcement. Thank you very much, all of you, for taking time out. Let's listen in to the Finance Minister.
Congratulations to Honourable Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji for presenting the budget 26-27 in Parliament today. I extend a very warm welcome to you, ma'am. I extend a warm welcome to the Honourable Minister of State for Finance, Shri Pankaj Chaudhary ji. I also welcome Secretary, Department of Public Enterprises, Secretary Expenditure, Secretary Deepam, Secretary Financial Services, Secretary Economic Affairs, Revenue Secretary, Chief Economic Advisor. Friends, first the Honourable Finance Minister will make her opening remarks. Thereafter, we will take some questions. Please remember, identify yourself and your organization's name, and I would request you to ask one question only so that your friends can be accommodated. Thank you very much. Over to Honorable Finance Minister.
Good afternoon. This is the customary press conference that we hold with all the secretaries. You've heard the entire budget being presented in the Parliament. So as opening remarks, I'll just highlight some of the points which we want to draw your attention to. But subsequently, of course, we'll answer all your questions. All the secretaries are here with me. So this budget being the first one, as the Honorable Prime Minister said 2 days ago, this being the first one for the second quarter of this century, also leading towards Vikasit Bharat 2047, We are laying the path and giving a push to the economy to maintain the growth momentum. And for that growth momentum or sustained economic growth, which we want to ensure, primarily we are looking at building the ecosystem with structural reforms which will go on. Reforms have been carried out. We are continuing to do the reform activities. It will continue with an aim to make sure that we create enough environment for improving productivity and making sure employment is generated. Also, technology, 21st century, this century is completely driven by technology. So we will ensure that technology is brought in to benefit the common man, to make sure common man benefits in the sense of ease of doing living, or for his business to prosper, or for farmers for greater productivity or better logistics, whatever. So technology for benefiting every common man. And above all, with all this, inclusive development. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and that is why you heard me bringing in schemes which have good allocations for bringing better health facilities, creating a cadre of people, not cadre in that sense, but a bulk of people who can come in as health workers, paramedics, and so on, and also making sure we are able to provide dignified opportunities for Divyangjan. Mental health has also received a lot of attention. So these are the side for Vikasit Bharat and making sure Sabka Vikas hoega. But the idea is the advantage and the momentum that we gained since after COVID by increasing public capital expenditure will continue. We've announced that 12.2 lakh crores are coming through public expenditure this time. It is 4.4% of the GDP. I'd like you all to please notice that, which is the highest, at least in the last 10 years. It could even be highest if you were to take data earlier. No increment in capital expenditure, sustained fashion, has happened ever before. This one marking 4.4% of the GDP. Then what are the kind of things which will happen through it? You will have dedicated freight corridors. I've named Dankuni in the east, Surat in the west. Then I've also highlighted that 20 new national waterways, not national highways, national waterways are being planned. And again there, those are going to pass through some of the critical mineral areas. Orissa, where the mineral-rich state, you have the waterways taking it to the port, and the two ports have been identified, Paradip and Dhamra. Similarly, we are also making sure that the coastal cargo movements will be enabled through a cargo route, so that through the coastal area we are able to cut down on cost of movement of goods. City economic regions, developing them is a very big new measure that we're coming up with. And for that, an allocation of 5,000 crore per city economic region. Imagine the amount, 5,000 crores in 5 years, 1,000 crore per year per city is being given, and the emphasis is going to be largely on tier 2, tier 3 cities. And then talking of infrastructure further, with the capital expenditure coming with the big number, you're having also the high-speed rail corridors. 7 of them announced. The destinations are clear, so that they become the bridge for all these economical robust centers. So those are for making sure that the infrastructure and the capital expenditure are getting tied up, and the country benefits from the ripple effects that these can bring in. The 7 strategic and frontier sectors in which we've highlighted that will increase productivity and also have new investments come in and give emphasis for India's own brand on those things is on the biopharma sector. I think that's going to be a big change in the way in which we are looking at giving hand on those things is on the biopharma sector. I think that's going to be a big change in the way in which we are looking at giving capacity for those who are able to research, who are able to undertake research and development. So 10,000 crore initiative again over five years for domestic biologics and biosimilar production. This is a clear message and backed with enough substance that India's lead in the pharmaceutical sector should be kept intact, but at the same time bring in newer ways of helping the pharma sector, and also because it has an impact on human health. Semiconductor mission had two major announcements that will improve the India stack and also the IP related matters. Electronic components manufacturing scheme for 40,000 crores is a major encouragement for electronics to become self-sufficient. We have also announced establishing rare earth corridors so that India can face and be able to meet its own requirements with its materials. So once we identify and are able to explore these minerals and process them, make them available for us, our dependency on external sources for bringing in the rare earths will be lesser, and we've identified the states where we want to establish this rare earth corridors. They are going to be in Orissa, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. So these are very important developments, and they are going to have multiple decadal impact on the Indian economy. Our dependence on magnets and rare earths will be brought down. 3 dedicated chemical parks, again for reducing our import dependence. High-tech tool rooms for research, that will be set up in 2 locations. Very important thing is about the construction equipment being imported. That could be for building tunnels or metros or high energy and also heavy duty equipments which we are relying on imports. We want to manufacture them in India, and that is why I said, how does it affect a common man? It affects because firefighters today have novel, new, big ticket and small, very small firefighting tools and weapons or equipment. We don't have them in this country. That's why if there is a fire accident in some very congested area, our equipments are not able to reach those points. Whereas there are equipments which today are produced abroad, which can navigate those small corridors and go save people's lives. Whether they or huge ones, all of which we want to make sure that we will have production in this country itself, whether they are tunnel boring or anything else. From small to big, we want to bring in those very impactful infrastructure into India. So we'll support domestic manufacturing. Then container manufacturing is another which we'll support. I think I've gone in detail talking about the textile support in various forms. One very important announcement was made, Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative, which will make sure khadi, handloom, handicrafts will all be brought in, and one district, one product will all be brought in this initiative, and we'll be able to support rural artisans, rural workers, and handloom weavers in those areas. Legacy industrial corridors have got saturated. Manufacturing happening there is now very constricted because they are not able to bring in newer robotics and others. So we want to upgrade these legacy industrial clusters so that they become cost competitive and efficiency comes into these places. Even more important is the champion MSMEs, small and medium industries, entrepreneurs, MSMEs, who are going to be given all the supports, and 3-pronged approach is being taken up there. We are giving equity support, we are giving also liquidity support, above all professional support for them, so that MSMEs, the equity support is supported by a 10,000 crore SME fund, growth fund. Above all, we are also topping up the Self-Reliant India Fund with 2,000 crores. So MSMEs should not feel any dearth of resources for equity. Similarly, they shouldn't feel any difficulty for liquidity in their hands, because the TREADS platform will now be treated almost as a backed up, security backed up instrument with which they'll be able to discount and get their monies. For professional support, we're working with the Chartered Accountant and Cost Accountant Institutes so that they can create corporate mitras who can help these MSMEs in filing their returns, doing their accounts, and so on. Above all, for youth and training, there's so much. You've heard the speech, so I won't want to take your time on it. High-powered education to employment enterprise, standing committees being formed so that they can recommend measures for service sector as a core driver of Vikasit Bharat. Part B concentrated a lot on tax and related concessions that are being offered. More importantly is the process simplification which has been announced. So elaborate measures have been taken. You will be able to also seek clarification if you want. New export opportunities for fishermen who can go into the economic India's zones, high seas, and also assess and access the global markets. The one very touching, and I really was moved by this proposal, is where we have identified 17 drugs or medicines which are going to be basic custom duty exempt, which are important for cancer patients. Similarly, 7 more rare diseases are added to the import exemption list of the import duties. Baggage clearance and personal items which you bring in when you travel are all being given enhanced duty-free allowance. Besides that, there are quite a few direct tax and indirect tax proposals. Decriminalizing the penalty proceedings and support to the IT sector are some of the high points. As an opening remark, I'll conclude here. I'm sure you'll be able to ask questions and seek clarification. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll start this question, taking the questions. First question is 17.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Shishir here from Hindu Business Line. Ma'am, my question is that under the miscellaneous capital receipt, the provision is 80,000 crore rupees. And last year, the provision was 47,000 crore, which has been reduced to 37,000 crore rupees now. Does this mean that there will be more equity monetization this year, or there will be more focus on the asset monetization of CPSEs?
So you've got it rightly. The intent is that we will have a very strong asset monetization plan in place. Last year, ma'am had announced in the budget that there will be a pipeline prepared, which is being done. So we hope to reap the dividends from that.
238.
Ma'am, Timsi Jaipuria, this side from CNBC TV 18. I just wanted to know the rationale behind the hike in STT in futures and options.